In this video, I'm going to show you how to build and implement all of the features that you need to be able to build a multi-tenant SaaS application in React. Now, if you're unfamiliar with what a multi-tenant application actually is, think of it like Slack or Discord or Vercel, for example. They are all multi-tenant. Essentially, you have organizations, right? So for example, on Slack, you have different workspaces. On Discord, you have servers. On Vercel, you have projects, right? And even organizations as well. And users can belong to organizations, one or multiple. And based on the role that they have within an organization, based on the permissions of that role, they can access different parts of the application. And so that's what a multi-tenant application actually is. And in this video, we're going to be implementing all of the features that are required to actually do that. So we're specifically going to be focusing on the organization part, right? So having multiple organizations, user belonging to organizations, and also focusing on the billing part, right? Because at the end of the day, you want to build a SaaS, right? A software as a service, which requires payments, right? And based on that payment, you have users and organizations access different features of the application. Now, to do all of that, we're going to be using Clerk, which actually makes this super simple and very efficient. And also Clerk is the sponsor of today's video. Now, you probably already know about Clerk. They're a pretty big player in the authentication space. That's how they got started, but they've actually grown into much more than that. Now they're actually handling your complete user management, which includes, for our purposes, organizations and then billing as well. So they actually have full support for all of this multi-tenancy, and it makes it really easy out of the box. The same ease of use and high quality product that you expect and you got from authentication, they also have here in the organizations, and they also have billing, which at the time of filming is in beta, but I'm sure that very quickly it's going to become stable. And I'm going to show you just how easy Clerk actually makes it to really build all of these features, because they literally provide you with components, functions, and hooks that you can directly plug into your application, and they manage everything, and you just access that data from your application and you can do anything that you want with it. So this is the application that we're going to be building in this video. This application is going to serve for us to see a demo of all of the features in action inside of our actual code. We're not actually going to be building a real SaaS application. That would be too much for one video, but I have here a bunch of features which really demonstrate how easy it is to actually work with Clerk when it comes to organizations and billing. So let's look now at all of the features that we're going to be building inside of this application. Now, this is a Next.js application, which means that we have server components, we have client components, and we also have API routes. And I'm going to show you all of those different pieces together. So the first very important piece out of all of this is, of course, the authentication, right? Because you can't have organizations or billing without first authenticating the actual user. If you can see here at the top right, I have my authenticated user over here. I'm currently signed in, and we have Clerk authentication all set up. And then once I'm signed in, based off of that, here I have another toggle over here. This is my organization switcher. This is actually a component that you get automatically from Clerk, so I did not build this myself. And here we have all of the organizations, right, that my user currently has access to. For example, we simply have the Cause and Solutions organization here, and I can manage it, but I will show you that a little bit later. Based off of this, now in Clerk, we actually have everything set up for me to have a user authenticated and an organization, and then I can directly pull that data inside of my application and consume it and do anything that I want with it. For example, over here in this org info tab over here, we have two components. We have a server component and then a client component. Both of these are accessing that same piece of information, and we're going to see how we can actually do that inside of a server component, right? Because that functions differently, and also inside of a client component. You can see here, I get my organization ID, I get the slug over here, and then my role. And then here inside of the client component, we get the name of the organization, the members, and then also my role within it, right? So the same data just coming from two different places, or actually it's coming from the same place, but we're pulling it from two different places, i.e. the server component and then the client component. Then over here, we can go to API route. So now this is going to show how we can actually have all of this information and all of this protection when it comes to authentication, in the sense of only being able to access the data that we're allowed to access at the API level. So I can press here, fetch organization data, and you can see here, I get a success message. Again, the organization ID, my role, and just some mock data over here, which basically shows us that we actually have access to this inside of our API using Clerk's authentication and role permissions. And speaking of permissions, we can come here to our permissions tab, and here you can see how we can actually integrate all of the permissions. So for example, here on a server component, once again, I have admin access, so I'm able to see this secret admin content. So we can basically, based on the role of the user and the permissions that they have, we can actually show or hide things at the server level, or we can also do that at the client level. Over here, we have some mock data over here. Basically, this is only going to show because I have those actual permissions. And then over here, we have billing, which is of course all of the payments and subscription side of things. So based on the plan that you have for an organization, I can also get that data, make a check against it, and only show you and give you access to the pro features if you're subscribed to the pro plan or not. So with all of this, we can pretty much see all of the fundamental features that you need to have inside of your application to literally be able to build anything that you want, right? Because now your users can have different organizations, they can make their own organizations, they can invite other users, you can set specific rules as to how organizations actually behave, put some limits on them, and based off of that, based on the plans, the features, the permissions, the roles, you can pull all of that data inside of your application and just pretty much do anything that you want with it. That's really the beauty of it, because Clerk over here is essentially managing everything for you, complete user managing, and all you have to do is set it up in their dashboard and then just pull the components, the hooks, the functions inside of your code, and then you're free to do, again, whatever you want and build the actual application. So let's now begin and let's start setting all of this up. Now, the first thing that you want to do is, of course, you want to make an account with Clerk, and then you want to access their dashboard over here. Once you do that, you essentially want to create an application over here. So I'm just going to come here and create another application over here. We're going to create one. I'm going to put your multi-tenant demo just like this. And here you can allow any sign-in options that you have. We're going to keep things simple. We're simply going to do email and then Google over here just to make it simple. This is how your sign-in page is going to look, right? So again, this is the authentication part of Clerk. We can come here, we can create our application, and then we're going to be inside of our dashboard. And then once you have that, you're going to see this screen over here, which is basically to set up your own application. So this is going to depend based on what framework you're actually using, right? So Next.js, Tansex Start, and so on. For our purposes, we're going to be using Next.js. And so these are the instructions that we need to follow. Now, I've already set all of this up. So basically you just have to install Clerk over here. You have to set your environment variables. You get the keys over here, set up the proxy and then a Clerk provider. So this is already set up. So we can just directly jump into the code and see what that actually looks like. So here's the code. So once again, we're working with a Next.js application, and this is what the setup for Clerk actually looks like. And you're going to see it is very simple, very straightforward. And that's really the beauty of using Clerk. So over here, we have the root layout, right? That's the main layout in Next.js. The only thing that I did is I put here this Clerk provider over here. I set here my appearance dark because I want to have dark mode. And then I just used directly these components over here from Clerk, like the signed out, the signed in. And these are basically components that will render different things based on the authentication state of the user. So once again, you don't have to manage that authentication state. Clerk just automatically does it for you. And then if the user is signed out over here, then I'm just showing here the sign in button and the sign up button. So user can sign in or sign on. If they are signed in, I'm using here and I'm just showing the user button, and all of these components here just come directly from Clerk. Again, I didn't build any of these components. And then over here, we have this proxy.ts file. So this is the new middleware in Next.js. And here I'm just using the Clerk middleware, right? Importing it from Clerk Next.js server. And that does everything automatically for us, managing the tokens, managing the cookies, the headers, and so on. And we don't have to worry about it. You just put this here, you put your provider, and then use the components, and you are good to go. And finally, we have our main page over here, which just has these tabs over here ready for us to actually start working on things and adding all of the content for those specific tabs. If I then go here to the application, this is what it currently looks like. So we have our tabs here. They're all, of course, empty. And then here we have the sign in and sign up buttons, which we can actually click to get a user. So for example, I can click sign up and let's start making an account. I have to make an account because I'm inside of a different application in my dashboard. And so the users obviously don't go from one application to the other. So let's not even provide my name. Let's just do contact@Cosden Solutions, the famous password, Cosden Solutions, just like this. Did I type it right? There you go. And I'm just going to create an account. And now I have an account over here, which of course I have to validate my email. So let's do 060274. Don't steal this code. It is not going to work by the time you're here. And there you go. With this, I'm now actually signed in and I have an actual account on Clerk, and I can see my user over here. If I just refresh the page, you're going to see that we have one user, contact@causeandsolutions.io. Great. So now the authentication part of Clerk actually works. Cool. So now with this, we're ready to actually start working and implementing organizations inside of our code. Now for this, what we have to do is we have to come here into the organizations tab. Let me just close this over here, and we have to enable organizations for this application over here, right? So here, enable your users to create organizations, manage team members, and control access with role-based permissions. So we're going to enable this, and then here you can set some options for the actual organization. Here we're going to set it to membership required, so which means that our users, when they have an account, they have to belong to an organization, right? So we're going to put that, but if you don't want that, if you want it to be optional, you can also set it here. Now here you're going to see that existing users will be forced to join an organization, which may break your application. That's totally fine. We're not really worried about that. So let's come here and let's enable the organizations. And now we have them set up for this project. Now, once you've done that, you can actually configure a bunch of things for the organization. Like you can still here set the optional membership if you change your mind later on. You can also have a membership limit, for example, how many people you can have within an organization. This is a pro feature. You can have verified domains and so on, right? You feel free to explore all of these settings and really make them exactly how you want them to be for your own application. We also have here roles and permissions, which we're going to be looking at a little bit later inside of this video. So now that we have organizations set up, you're going to see here, going back to the application, I'm currently signed out over here. And that's because we enabled organizations and our existing user did not have an actual organization. Now, when I come here to sign in, you're going to see that it knows that I'm signed in over here, right? contact@causeandsolutions.io. But now it's asking me to set up an organization because again, we made them required. So let's come here. Let's set up an organization. Let's put here a logo just like this. Let's do here Causean Solutions. Of course, let's press continue. And now we have here an organization, and now I'm back into my application and everything works exactly as we expect. And that's really the beauty of Clerk, because you just set things up and things just work all of the time. Cool. So now with this, our next step is to actually show the organization of the user over here, just like we had it before, and also allow the user to create an organization or even manage their organizations. Now you might think that this is something that is very difficult to do, but I'm going to show you it's actually quite simple. The only thing that we have to do is we have to come in here and import the organization switcher component, again from Clerk at Next.js, and we simply have to come in here and just put it right before the user button, and that is it. Now over here, going back to the application, I have the organization switcher. Again, I have my organization here. I can manage it as well, and here I get a nice little modal managing the organization. Here I can update the profile, change the name. Oh, I missed an S, for example, right? So there you go. I can change the name. I can leave the organization, delete it. And also I can see the members. And here, because I'm the one that created the organization, I have the admin role, but I can actually set my role or manage other members, right? Like if I wasn't the only member, I could remove other members because essentially I'm the admin of this organization. And of course, I can invite users as well by the email and set a role for them. And this is all very well and good. And then again, Clerk will just handle all of these things automatically for you. And see how easy this is? Like you just import literally one component, it's one line of code, and you get full organization support inside of your application, and that integrates so nicely with the authentication. And you're going to see it's going to integrate just as nice with the permissions and the billing as well. Cool. So now with this, now that we have organizations set up inside of our application, let's start actually consuming some of this data and showing it here inside of our project. So let's go back here to our code. Let's come here. Let's open up our sidebar over here, and let's start creating the server org info component, which is going to be a server component that will get the actual data of the current organization that we are in. So I'm going to go here to components. I'm going to make here a new file inside of a new folder. We're going to put here demo just like this. And let's maybe scroll down so you can actually see. And then we're going to do server org info just like this .tsx. And here we're just going to do export function server org info. And then we have server org info right there. And then we have our component over here. Great. Now, here's the really cool part once again, right? Inside of our application, we're already signed in and we're already part of an organization. So the only thing that we have to do is just get that data directly. And the cool thing about Clerk is it actually has that functionality built in by just using a simple function. Since we're inside of a server component here, we should actually make this async over here. Since we're inside of a server component, we can just use functions directly and we can call things to get our data. So what we can do is we can come in here and we can do exactly just like cursor knows over here, we can await the auth function from Clerk Next.js server. This is the same function that you basically use to check the authentication state of a user, because after all, the organization is part of the authentication state, right? Because the user can be signed in or not, and they also belong to an organization. So it's all part of the same thing. And here you have to await it, right? So we can do that in a server component. And then you get here the organization ID, the organization role, and then the organization slug, which you can just use and do things with. And then once we have this, I'm just going to put here some UI over here. This is the same UI that I have. So if we don't have an organization ID, right? So if we're not currently in, which currently inside of our application, this is never going to happen, but still it doesn't hurt to put it there. Then we're simply going to render select an organization. Otherwise, we're going to show here the org ID with the org ID, the slug, and so on. Cool. So now with this, we can actually do the same thing in our client component. So you can see how that actually works. So we can come in here, we can make a new component inside of the demo folder. And here we're going to call it client org info.tsx, just like this. Again, we're going to export the function client or info. And now because we're obviously in a client component, we have to put here use client at the top. And now the way that we're going to do this is a little bit differently. And again, cursor knows exactly what I want to do. We're going to import the use organization custom hook over here from Clerk. And this one is going to give us here the actual organization resource, which has the same data that we got in the server. So here we're going to access the organization, but I also want to access the membership over here because that's going to give us access to the actual role that we have within this organization. And then over here, same thing. I'm just going to paste here some actual UI over here. So if we don't have an organization, again, select an organization. Otherwise, we get the organization name, the members count, right? The membership.role, or any other property that we would actually want to show and use inside of the application. Now, keep in mind that for the video here, I'm keeping things very simple, right? Obviously, otherwise this will be a very long video. I'm just essentially showing you how to get the actual data. And then what you do with that data is completely up to you. Because here, once you have the organization, you can use any properties of the organization, the ID, the name, whatever, and do anything that you want with it. And you can do that inside of your client components. And here you do that inside of your server components as well. So, right. So now with this, you can see how this works in the different environments. And then what you do with that is completely up to you. Cool. So now with that, let's come here to our main page component and let's start actually showing some of these things. So I'm just going to paste over here some components. Let's import all of them and let's hope that my cursor is able to import, and I think it's okay. Yeah, perfect. So now we're basically showing here just a card over here inside of the tabs content, the card header, the card title, and then of course the server org info and the client org info to actually show this data inside of our application. So going back to the application now, you can see that it works exactly as we expect over here, right? So server component, we get the same data, and then client component, we get the same data. So this works exactly as we expect. And now if I come here and I just sign out, just so that you can see that this actually works, I'm going to come here, I'm going to sign out, and now you see I am signed out, and now I don't see anything else over here. I see select an organization because that's the code that we wrote, right? So our code still works, but now because we're signed out, we no longer see any details of our organization. Great. So now with this, let's move on. Let's start building our API route to see how this works at the API level. So let's come back here to our editor, and here we're going to come inside of app over here, and then we're going to make a new file inside of a new folder. We're going to do here API/root.ts. In here, we're just going to do export, and there you go. Cursor knows exactly. We're going to export our get function. And now we're going to be able to do the same thing, which as you can see over here is pretty much the same as a server component because server components run on the server. And so they can access and they can use the same exact functions. You basically import the auth function from Clerk, and then you access the ID, the role, or the slug, or whatever you want from the user. And then you can check that, first of all, the user is signed in, that they have an organization, that they have the correct role. And based off of that, you can again do anything that you want. So once again, I'm going to show you how this actually would look like in a simple mock application over here. So let's come here. Let's import our next response over here. There we go. And here, instead of org slug, we need the user ID, and we don't need, for this case, the org slug over here. So here we have the user ID, right? It can be a string, it can be null if the user is not there, not authenticated. So we're first going to check if the user is authenticated. Otherwise, we're going to return a next response, JSON status 401. Then we're going to check if we have an organization. Otherwise, we're going to throw this error. Otherwise, we're going to return here success, and then here's some mock data, right? It doesn't really matter what the data is. It just matters that this actually works, and you can use that inside of your API. Then let's come here inside of our components. And here I'm just going to do something like API info, just like this. And this one, again, is a very simple component that I'm just pasting here to just simply fetch our data. And this should just be API over here. Again, the point of this is not how to actually fetch data. The point of this is to show that fetching data actually works. So here we're going to make a fetch over here, right? In this function, fetching the API endpoint. We're going to call this on our button on click. And then if we have a response, we're simply going to show it inside of our UI. And then we can go back here to our main page component, and here we can just show that component over here. And this is API demo, but here I named it info. It's fine. It doesn't really matter. There we go. Now we have this. And if we go here to our application, we can see that it works over here, and we make a fetch request and we actually get the data. Success. We can see the actual data right there. Great. So now with this, let's come here and let's move on to permissions and see how permissions actually work. So let's go back here to our code. I closed all the things to just make it easier. Here, I'm going to make another component. We're now going to do things on the server. So I'm going to do here server permissions, just like this, .tsx, and maybe it should be .tsx. Let's come here. Let's add the X. And here, I'm just going to do export async function server permissions. And there we go. Now we have our server permissions component. Now, once again, the way that we actually handle permissions in Clerk is just as easy as everything else, which is really nice because typically when you think about permissions and roles and stuff like that, it can really be difficult. It is especially difficult if you're doing things manually to get it right. But with Clerk, it's literally as simple as, once again, using the auth function over here, right? So here, instead of org ID, I'm going to do org. Actually, instead of org role, I'm going to do org ID. And then from auth over here, we can actually use one very, very powerful function, which is the has function over here. The has function essentially allows you to check pretty much anything. If a user has a specific permission, if they have a role, if they have a feature, right? Anything that you pretty much want to check, you can probably do with this has function. So for example, what we want to do is after we checked if we have an org ID, we can come in here and we can do const is admin, and we can do has over here. And now we can pass here an object with anything that you want. We can do role over here, and we can do org admin. This is the specific syntax for roles inside of Clerk. And this is essentially going to check that our current user that's currently signed in has this role, which is org admin. Basically means that they are the admin of the organization, which in our case is true because we are that admin. And based off of that, we can come in here and we can just return some UI over here, right? Checking that we have is admin over here. And if we do, it's going to be green over here. And then we're going to show granted. Otherwise, we're going to show denied in red. And then only if is admin are we going to show the secret admin content visible that you saw initially in the introduction of the video. And then over here, we're still showing something because here it doesn't mean that the user is not authenticated, right? Or doesn't actually belong to that organization. It simply means that they don't have this specific role, the org admin, right? So that's why we're saying here you are a member, but the admin content is hidden. Right, so this is really useful because when you're building out your applications, some parts you only want to allow admins to have access to do things to. Other parts you want to allow all members to actually see. And this is a great and simple way for you to actually do that. And here on the official Clerk documentation, you can actually look at the has function and see just all the things that it can actually do, right? So you can check here the role, you can check a permission, a feature, or a plan, right? When we integrate billing to see what plan the user actually has. And then you can also specify a bunch of other configurations here. And again, this allows you to check pretty much anything that you want. Now, when it comes to actually configuring roles and permissions, we will look at that a little bit later in this video, but I want to show you that Clerk by default has some roles that they automatically provide to any organization. For example, over here we have the default role set, which basically has the admin and the member role. I can click into it over here and I can actually see those roles over here, right? So this is here the key that we actually used inside of our code. So basically you want to go inside of your dashboard, you want to find the key of the role that you specifically want to check, and then you use that key directly inside of your code, and then your code is going to work if the user has this specific role. And even further down, you're going to see here each role role has permissions, right? And you can come here and you can see the actual permissions of that role. And then here you can see all of the permissions, which you could also use inside of your code to actually check against the user to see if they have that specific permission. And this is really cool because you get some default provided permissions and roles from Clerk, but you can also specify your own permissions and also your own custom roles, which again, I will show you how to do that at the end of the video. Cool. So with that, let's come here. Let's do the same thing on the client over here. So here we're going to do client permissions.tsx just like this. We're going to export our component over here. And here we're going to basically do it in exactly the same way, just on the client. So this time we're going to come in here and we're going to do const has, and here we're going to get it not from use organizations, but use auth over here, because this is an authentication feature. We're checking against the specific user if they have some specific permission. And then over here, we can do the same exact thing. We can check for his admin, but now the only difference is because we're on the client, this has here can be possibly undefined. So we simply have to do the optional cheating over here to just check it. If it's undefined, if it's not there, then is admin is basically going to be false. Right. So now we're checking here, is admin the same exact role over here that we had before. And then we can simply come here, return some UI over here. We're going to import our button over here and we should be good to go. So again, if we're Isma admin, we're going to show some UI. Otherwise, we're going to show it locked. You pretty much already know what's going on. So let's now go back here to our main page over here and let's simply put our new content. Let's import here both the server permissions and the client permissions. And there we go. And now let's go back to our application over here and let's see, should we see this? And there we go. All right, I did forget to put the use client here at the top. See, that's what you get when working with Next.js, right? You have to specify use client here at the top. Otherwise, Next.js is going to bite you. There we go. Now we should be good to go. You go here to permissions. We see them on the server. They work. We are granted. And then also on the client, we can see all of this UI over here, which basically is letting us theoretically do all the things that only an admin can actually do. And there you go. With this, we've now set up and implemented permissions inside of our application. The only thing left for us to do is to actually set up and interrogate billing to essentially have payment support inside of this application. So let's do it. Now for this, you're going to want to go back inside of your Clerk dashboard and you're going to want to set up billing as well. So we can come in here, we can get started. And now over here, we can basically set up the type of billing that we actually want. So user billing, essentially turning on individual subscriptions for user. So typically what you would get in a B2C business. And then organizations, so for the organizations that they can actually pay, which is what you would get in a B2B business. For now, for this video, we're just going to enable user billing over here. But again, you can do either or depending on what you want for your specific application. And see over here, it's telling us that we're all set up, which is great. The only thing that we have to do is to add the pricing table component to our app so the users can actually subscribe to your plans and then use the SDKs to gate functionality in your app's code base by using our has method over here, which we've seen, and our protect component over here to essentially protect things or guard something if a user is subscribed or not. Now, for us to actually be able to do that, first we have to create a subscription plan, right? So what is the user going to be subscribing to? And of course, how much is it going to cost? So you're going to want to come here to subscription plans over here. And then here you can see that they've already created some free plans for us, which is really great. And now we can create our own plans over here. So we can either click here or click here, right? I'm going to click create a plan over here. And here we're going to do something like Cosden Solutions Pro over here. And this is the key of the plan that's automatically generated. You can of course change this if you want. The membership fee, let's put here $20 a month. Let's not put any discount. Let's not do anything with the free trial. And let's make this publicly available. So it is going to appear on the pricing table and organization profile components. Let's come here, let's click save, and there we go. We have a plan all set up, ready to go. Great. So now with this, we just want to keep this in mind, this key over here, because we're going to need to actually use it inside of our code to check if the user is subscribed to that plan. So let's come here back into our code. Let's create another component over here. We're going to call this one billing plan demo.tsx over here. And here we're just going to do export, if I can write correctly, export billing plan demo. And here, we're going to now check very similarly to what we checked before. So we can come in here. This is going to be a server component, by the way. So we're going to do const, and here we're going to do org ID, just like we've been doing so far. We're going to do await and then auth over here, import this from Clerk. And then here, I'm just going to put this piece of code. If we don't have a org ID, we're just going to return this. Then of course, we need to make this asynchronous. And now again, we're going to also want to use the has function over here to essentially check if the user has that specific plan. So we're going to come in here. We're going to do const has pro plan. over here, we're going to make this equal to has. And instead of checking here a permission over here, which we're not going to do, we're going to come in here. What happened here? My keyboard, const has per plan. We're going to check here plan over here, which is another key. And now we're going to go back to our key over here. We're going to get our key and we're going to paste this key over here. This is the plan that we actually set up inside of our dashboard. And based off of this, of course, we can come in here and return some actual UI over here, checking if we have a plan and then setting here Cause and Solutions Pro. Otherwise, setting here that we need to subscribe to unlock our pro features. So that's on the server. And of course, just like we've been doing so far inside of this video, let's come here. Let's do the same thing on the client. So here I'm going to come, not make a new folder. We're going to come here, make a new file. This one's going to be billing feature demo.tsx, and we're going to export this component here. This time we're not going to forget use client here at the top, just because we're going to be working inside of a client component. And now we can do the same thing inside of here, but now we're not going to use any custom hook. We're actually going to be using the protect component that we saw on the dashboard of Clerk. So let me just show you how that actually would look like. So here I just have some UI over here. The really important piece here is this protect component, which again, we can come in here and we can import directly from Next.js. This basically protects something on the client side based on a specific plan over here. You can of course also put here a role if you want. You can also put here a permission if you want, right? This functions the same exact way as the actual functions in hooks, but this is an actual component that you can pass here a plan. In this case, for example, and only allow a user if they have this specific plan. Now, it is important to note that this here is only going to protect things on the client, which means that it's only not going to show the actual data and the components that you want to render. They're still going to be there in the source code of the application. So if you have something sensitive in there, you want to do that on the server and just not send that data over the wire if the user doesn't have the correct plan. But for us, for the simple demo purposes here, this is perfectly fine. So now with this, we can come back here to our page over here and put the last tab over here. So this is going to be our billing plan and our billing feature over here. And now we just need to import our button here as well. And we're also going to import our link. This is just because I had them before. We're going to actually implement this page very shortly. But now if I go back here to our application, you're going to see that if you go here to billing, now we have the actual checks over here. And here it's showing that I don't currently have a plan, right? So plan, no plan. I need to subscribe to Pro to unlock all the features. And here I have the base analytics, which is available right for free, but the Pro analytics, I need an upgrade. So of course, I'm going to have to come in here and click upgrade, but currently here, we actually have nothing currently set up. Now, for us to be able to implement our pricing page over here, we're going to want to go back to the documentation over here, or rather to our dashboard. And this is the component that we want to use, the pricing table over here. Again, just like is the same with everything else on Clerk, they just give you a component and you can just directly use it, which is really, really useful. Now, for us here, I just noticed if I go here to subscription plans, I realize I made the plan inside of the organization plans over here. That's fine. I'm going to show you this as well, but we can also make one inside of the user plans over here. So let's just create a plan over here. Let's put it here, for example, Cause and Solutions. And I'm also going to do Pro user just to make things a little bit easier per user. Here, we're also going to put 20 bucks a month, right? And I'm going to save this as well. Now with this, what we can do is we can come here to our code inside of the pricing page, which is the one that you've seen right now. And the only thing that we actually have to do is we have to import and use the pricing table component. So we can just directly put it here, pricing table, just directly import this component. And guess what? We go back over here and you're going to see that we have our plan over here, which is great. And then I can come here, I can actually directly subscribe. That's going to open up this modal over here. I can pay with a test card because we're in development mode, and I can directly subscribe, and look at that. I'm actually subscribed already. Like that was as simple as that. Now, if you go here, you're going to see that this is still not working because in our code, we're still referencing the organization plan. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm actually going to come here inside of the pricing table, and here you can actually show the plans of an organization. So here we can put 4 organizations, and then I can come here inside of our code, and now we're not seeing anything because we have to go back to our dashboard here and we have to actually enable the organizations billing. So let's go here to billing settings, enable organization billing so that we can actually have the plans show up. Now, if I come here and I refresh the page, now you're going to see that this is the organization. So now here, once again, I can actually subscribe just so you can see how this also works. Again, we're going to pay with a test card. And then now again, I'm also subscribed over here. And now you're going to see that everything works exactly as we expect. This is now checking the actual organization plan, and we can also use that inside of our code. Right, so this is really, really useful because now we have payments set up. They automatically integrate with Stripe, which is really cool. You don't need to really manage anything. You just directly enable this inside of your dashboard, and then you put the components and you are pretty much good to go. And with that, we've successfully implemented all of the different features that you would need to be able to build a multi-tenant SaaS application inside of React applications. And you saw just how easy this actually was, right? Like all of these complex features of organizations, multi-tenancy, payments, subscriptions, and so on, they're all abstracted away by Clerk, and they just provide you everything out of the box inside of a dashboard, and then a few simple components, functions, and hooks to actually use inside of your code. Now, before we end the video, I just want to show you some of the things that you can actually do to actually further deepen the amount of control that you want to get out of Clerk when it comes to organizations and billing. So we've seen, right, when it comes to organizations, right here, you can go to roles and permissions. You can pretty much create any type of role set that you want over here. This is a premium feature. It's totally fine. You can create any type of role set, right? Like a marketing team, for example, and then assign any role that you want inside of that by creating your own roles, and then use those inside of your components, inside of our apps to actually determine and gate functionality. So that already is really, really cool. Then what you can also do inside of billing over here, when you go to subscription plans over here, either organization or user plans, you can go inside of here and then you can add specific features over here, which you can also use to also gate the functionality inside of the application. And you can set whether these appear on the pricing table, the user profile, and stuff like that, right? And you can just manage everything that you want. And these features over here, as you can see here, they integrate directly with the roles and permission. Basically, to limit access to this feature based on organization roles, create permissions for this feature, right? And then assign them to roles. And you can go here and actually see how you can actually do that. And of course, if you're confused about anything, they have really good docs that actually walk you through all of the different things and how you can set all of these things up. Right, so now with this, what you have is you have a platform, right? Clerk, the platform that essentially excels at authentication, right? They do that really, really well, right? They're like one of the top players in authentication, but now you can do way more. You can manage your complete user, your complete organizations, and you can build any type of application. And this is a really, really powerful product for anything that you want to build. Even if you just want to prototype something, this is arguably one of the best ways to do that because you're not really writing any of the code yourself. You're just using the components and the functions and the hooks that they already built for you. And so if you haven't tried Clerk, I would highly, highly recommend that you try them, not just because they're sponsoring this video. I genuinely love this product. I don't do many sponsorships on the channel. I only do sponsorships with companies that I really like. And Clerk is absolutely one of those. And their product over here is really stellar and top notch. So if you want to try Clerk for authentication, organizations, billing, or even all of them together, which honestly you should if you're using them, then definitely check out the link in the description. It's the first link there, and tell them I sent you. And if you also want to see and take a look at the code that we actually have built over here, I'm going to be putting this code over here up on GitHub so you can actually see it and even clone it if you want to build upon it. So yeah, thank you once again to Clerk for sponsoring this video. And if you've enjoyed this video, make sure to leave it a big thumbs up. You can also click here to subscribe, or you can click here to watch a different video of mine that YouTube seems to think that you're really going to enjoy. And with that being said, my name has been Darius Kozin. This is Kozin Solutions. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Ciao, ciao.